Hello and welcome to the T-37 tweet familiarisation video. The T-37B tweet is a two-engine jet trainer that was in service with the United States Air Force from 1957 until 2009. The aircraft itself has a wingspan of 12.58 metres and a length of 8.92 metres. It is powered by two J69 turbojet engines manufactured by Teledyne, each producing 1,025 foot-pounds of thrust. It is operated by a crew of two, one student pilot sitting in the left seat and the instructor sitting in the right one. Let's get into that cockpit. The cockpit is in a side-by-side configuration, which enabled better communication between the crew. On the student side, you can see the flap indicator, basic flight and navigation instruments, a clock, DME, electrical engine and fuel control switches, and exterior light switches. Going back up, we can see the warning lights, gear position lights, and to the left we can find the landing and taxi light switch and the landing gear lever. Immediately below this is the oxygen panel. In the middle of the main panel we can see the fire warning lights for the two engines. Immediately below are the engine RPM indicators, EGT gauges, fuel flow, and oil pressure indicators. At the bottom are the electrical load meters, one for each engine. The big gauge to the right of the engine instruments is the fuel quantity gauge, calibrated in hundreds of pounds. The T-37B has three fuel tanks, one feed tank in the fuselage and two wing tanks that transfer their fuel into the feed tank when the fuel level is low. The three position switch below the gauge is used to change its indicated quantity. Left will indicate fuel quantity in the left tank, right in the right tank, and total, you guessed it, will indicate fuel quantity on all three tanks combined. The red warning light labelled Fuel Low will illuminate when the fuel in the feed tank drops below 370 pounds. The warning light labelled Fuel Gravity will illuminate when the guarded switch labelled Fuel System is set to emergency, which will shut off the aircraft's fuel pumps and revert to gravity feed. Further right is the IFF panel, UHF communication radio, and nav-TACAN radio dials. Lighting for the radio panel is controlled from the radio lights knob, which is above and to the left of the panels. On the instructor's side are a second ADI, airspeed indicator, altimeter, and turn and slip indicator. The rest of the panel is dominated by the circuit breakers and finally the instructor's oxygen control panel. Moving to the pedestals, to the left of the student is his throttle quadrant with the two thrust levers, one for each engine, and the flap lever. Behind the throttles we find the rudder trim switch and the intercom control panel, which is inoperative. In the middle of the cockpit is the instructor's throttle quadrant containing two engine levers and a flap switch. It is important to note here at this point that only the instructor's throttles have a cut-off position, which is toggled by right-clicking the throttle lever. Immediately ahead of the throttle levers are the interior light knobs that control the backlighting for the flight instruments and panels. After the throttles, on the vertical panel, is the canopy control switch. The canopy switch is spring-loaded to the open position and will cause the canopy to open when the locking lever located on the wall is pulled back. The guarded switch is the emergency canopy control switch. Immediately aft is the secondary instrument lights knob, which controls the intensity of the floodlights mounted on the glare shield. On the student's wall, you can see the emergency canopy Jetson T-handle. By opening the zipper and pulling open the wall cover, you can see the external canopy control switches. These switches are normally accessed from the outside of the aircraft by opening the appropriate access doors. let's take a look at the Aircraft Configuration Manager for the T-37. The Aircraft Configuration Manager can be brought up by hitting Shift and 1, or going to Vehicle, Instrument Panel, and selecting it from the menu. The first page of the Aircraft Configuration Manager contains the aircraft configuration options. The aircraft states allow you to set the aircraft in a cold and dark, ready to taxi, or ready to fly state, which will automatically set the aircraft and systems appropriately. This option is stored when you exit the simulator, so the next time you load the tweet, it will be started in the state you had selected in your previous flight. The Fly Solo option will unload the instructor from the aircraft. Going down, we have the pilot visibility controls. If you don't want to see the pilot in the virtual cockpit, you can deactivate each of them separately or both by clicking the appropriate checkbox. Next are the Piloting Command options, which allow you to select which pilot will have his hands at the controls. The Piloting Command will react to flight inputs by looking in the direction the aircraft is turning to, while the inactive pilot will react to the direction the player is looking in. The Auto Possess option allows you to automatically set as pilot in command the one whose ever seat you are in. Finally, we have the Pilot Visor options, which will raise or lower each pilot's visor when checked or unchecked. The other two pages, labelled Radios and TACAN, are informational and intended to facilitate your use of the tweet's radios. The radios page contains a listing of the 20 preset channels stored in the T-37's radios, covering Vance and Shepherd Air Force bases. The TACAN page contains a table that allows you to convert P3D VOR frequencies into TACAN channels. The tweet's navigation radio requires both MHz and TACAN to be tuned in order to operate. Well, this concludes T-37 familiarisation video. We do hope you enjoy exploring the aircraft and of course have fun flying it. The next video will focus on startup and takeoff, and as the name suggests, it will cover how to start the aircraft from a cold and dark state and take it into the skies. Thanks for watching.